Michael, it's all coming. Now, I will say, for the West, they've had a lot of heat this December, so there maybe you're saying...
Something is happening in America that no longer seems random. In areas that were previously thought to be stable and where earthquakes were not anticipated, the ground is trembling with a frequency that defies geological history. Not long later, cracks extended beneath the country's foundations, causing damage to infrastructure and roadways that were constructed with the presumption of permanence. This shaking is not merely a geological fluke. It is a divine synchronization of the highest order. Jerusalem, the epicenter of God's prophetic clock, is currently witnessing a surge in tension and historical shifts that mirror this global instability. As it is written in Zechariah 12:3, Jerusalem will become a cup that sends all the surrounding peoples staggering. When the cornerstone of God's city moves, the rest of the world feels the vibration. We must look at Jerusalem to understand why the American soil is breaking. Witnesses are astounded by the fire that erupts from a cloudless sky near Plymouth Rock, the nation's symbolic birthplace. At this specific time and place, the heavens are the focal point of it all. 4 suns suddenly materialize in the sky, an impossibility that silences people. Every occurrence by itself could be disregarded, but they create a pattern when combined. Are these natural abnormalities or warning indicators that something more profound is happening in our time? Let's examine it more closely. If you believe we are living in the days foretold by the prophets and want to stay ahead of these world-changing events, subscribe now for more prophetic updates and stay vigilant as the countdown to the end of the age continues. The earth has started to tremble in recent weeks throughout Texas, Oklahoma, and portions of the Midwest that were previously thought to be earthquake-safe. People don't think of these locations as seismically dangerous. No significant fault lines exist, neither a history of frequent earthquakes nor a belief that the ground beneath them would ever relocate. These earthquakes weren't very large or devastating right away. They were more frequent, smaller vibrations, just powerful enough to wake people in the middle of the night, break roads, and rattle houses. The Bible does not characterize these earthquakes as chance occurrences or simple tectonic shifts. In Matthew 24, Jesus cautioned that earthquakes would happen in various places, not just where people anticipate them. This is what the Bible calls the beginning of sorrows. Just as Jerusalem's Temple Mount remains the most contested and watched piece of land on earth, these tremors in the American heartland are a physical manifestation of a spiritual shift that is rattling the entire globe. Numerous locals reported the same response, bewilderment instead of fear. People repeatedly stated, "This doesn't occur here," which is precisely what makes these incidents so unnerving. The facilities in these areas were never intended to withstand earthquakes. The idea behind building foundations, roads, and bridges was that the ground would not move. Weaknesses emerged when it moved, even a little. Paving split. Structures changed. Systems that depended on established stability demonstrated how brittle they actually were. Their level of violence is not the main focus, but when and where they take place. Although there may not have been extensive damage from these shocks, they have questioned our deepest presumptions. They have served as a reminder that things that seem permanent could not actually be as safe as they appear. The book of Daniel speaks of a time when knowledge shall increase, and the world will be in turmoil before the final revelation of God's kingdom. We are seeing the foundations of the modern world crack, while the eyes of the nations are being drawn back to the golden timepiece. Jerusalem, comment your thoughts below. Do you feel the urgency of this hour, or do you think this is just a coincidence? The first tremors soon left a distinct mark. The ground started to fracture in several states. Roads were ripped apart. There was damage to underground pipes. Even without any significant effect, a few structures tilted. The breakdown was not caused by a single significant jolt, but rather from the gradual accumulation of silent pressure. Engineers discovered a recurring theme. The system was already weak, and it collapsed rather than due to an overpowering assault. Tiny, silent fissures began to form. At first, hardly anyone took note, however. The damage became evident when the tolerance threshold was exceeded. This mirrors the prophecy in Revelation 6, where a great earthquake marks the opening of the sixth seal. Every crack in the American soil is a reflection of the breaking of the status quo in Jerusalem. Jerusalem is the gold timepiece of God. When the hands of that clock move towards the final hour, the world must pay attention. These cracks are not just in the asphalt, they are in the very fabric of our reality. What was most concerning wasn't the magnitude of the damage, but the delusion of safety that came before it. Many sections were operating as they should prior to the cracks showing up. This demonstrates that collapse isn't necessarily dramatic. Sometimes it occurs in silence until it can't be hidden anymore. The Bible frequently describes foundations being put to the test. It's not about instant destruction, but about exposing what is genuinely solid and what can only exist under fortunate circumstances. Difficulties don't produce vulnerabilities, they reveal those that already exist. Consequently, when the earth splits in areas that were previously thought to be secure, the infrastructure is not the only issue. It has to do with everything we think is stable. How many items stay in place only because they've never faced opposition? Share this video with someone who needs to wake up to the reality of the times we are living in. If ground fissures give rise to concerns over the foundations, what came after made many people look up at the sky. In Plymouth Rock, a puzzling incident happened at one of America's most significant historical sites. There was lightning from a clean sky devoid of any rain, thunderstorms, or warning indications beforehand. Those in attendance stated that the clouds looked exceptionally bright, as though they contained fire. The lightning bolts weren't dispersed, but repeated several times in the same location. Where raindrops should have fallen, fires broke out. Firefighters observed information that baffled them. There was so little rainfall that it appeared as though the water had already evaporated before arriving at the ground. Fire from above is never a coincidental occurrence in the Holy Scriptures. From the pillar of fire that led the Israelites out of Egypt to the fire that consumed Elijah's altar on Mount Carmel, it manifests as an indication of divine presence and a call to repentance. Just as fire once tested the holiness of Jerusalem's temple, it is now testing the symbolic foundations of the Western world. This is a gold timepiece moment, a warning that the Creator is intervening in human history once again. Meteorologists provided circumspect justifications, including coastal atmospheric instability or uncommon electrical occurrences. But none of these justifications provided a comprehensive response to the most crucial query. Why was there fire in the absence of typical storm behavior? There was only lightning and flames, not a lot of wind or rain. Fire in the Bible is a symbol of devastation, caution, and existence. There is more to Plymouth Rock than meets the eye. It symbolizes the start of a religious nation that would span the oceans. Therefore, the power of the phenomenon is not what causes the uneasiness, but the location's importance. The current events in Jerusalem, including the rededication of interest in the Third Temple and the geopolitical fires surrounding the city, are the true markers of our time. We are witnessing the fusion of history and prophecy. Just as Daniel 9 foretold the desolations of Jerusalem, we are seeing the signs of the end manifest in the most symbolic places on Earth. Following a string of strong hurricanes struck Florida's east coast, divers examining the damaged seafloor discovered something that halted them in their tracks. Chunks of sand had been pushed aside by the strong waves, which had moved heavy layers of submerged silt and rock. Something enormous started to appear beneath them, a secret monument sitting still on the ocean floor. The divers initially believed it to be a shipwreck, but their lights showed long resonating stone, elaborately carved steps, and towering arches with passageways extending beneath the sand. Each surface and line carried the exact impression left by ancient engineering. This was architecture. The central wall had the most startling detail, an inscription cut vertically into Proto-Semitic, an alphabet that closely matched the ancient Hebrew letters. The statement was interpreted as waters rise against the pride of man. This discovery is a direct echo of Genesis 7. God told Noah that humanity had become conceited and a flood was imminent. Jesus explained in Luke 17:26, "As it was in the days of Noah, so shall it be also in the days of the Son of Man." The rising waters in our modern era and the discovery of these ancient warnings are not accidental. They are part of a global awakening directed by the God of Jerusalem. Later, divers noted that the water surrounding the monument was significantly cooler than anticipated, as if the air were emerging from an old reservoir that was submerged in the ocean. Oceanographers verified the deep-sea current's peculiar backflow, which did not suit the typical heat patterns in the area. If the building existed before any known Western Hemisphere civilization, then who constructed it? Furthermore, why would a letter written in a Middle Eastern script appear thousands of miles away? This is a reminder from the deep. As Jerusalem faces its most critical hour in modern history, the earth and the sea are giving up their secrets to testify to the truth of the Bible. Revelation 10 speaks of an angel with one foot on the sea and one on the land, declaring that there should be time no longer. The urgency is here. Subscribe and hit the notification bell so you don't miss the next prophetic revelation that the mainstream media won't tell you about. After the bizarre occurrences in the sky and on land, a new set of happenings started, stunning many communities. Churches in several states abruptly caught fire for unknown reasons. There were no thunderstorms, no proof of arson, and no electrical short circuits noted. Security cameras collected more inquiries than responses. No indications of forced entry, no electrical short circuit, and no obvious reason why the fire began. A church is more than just a structure. It is a place of prayer and spiritual solace where people go when the outer world becomes erratic. When fire touches those exact locations, a feeling of discomfort spreads quickly. In the Bible, fire in houses of worship is connected to examination and cleansing. 1 Peter 4:17 tells us that judgment must begin at the house of God. If the sanctuaries are burning while the spirit of Jerusalem is under siege, the message is clear. The time for lukewarm faith is over. The gold timepiece is striking the midnight hour, and the fire is here to refine the gold and consume the dross. Attention was pulled to the sky once more, this time not for storms or thunder but for a bizarre sight. Witnesses documented the simultaneous appearance of 4 suns. Unlike airplanes, their light sources did not flicker. They didn't move in the same way as satellites, nor did they reflect in the typical manner of well-known optical phenomena. These suns appeared to be fixed in the sky, standing motionless and glowing continuously. There was no noise and no indications of unstable weather. Witnesses just stood motionless, gazing up with an inexplicable emotion, uncomfortable, not afraid. Luke 21:25 prophesies that there shall be signs in the sun and in the moon and in the stars, and upon the earth distress of nations. These are not atmospheric anomalies, they are the fingerprints of the Creator. Just as the star led the wise men to Jerusalem to find the King, these celestial disruptions are leading us back to the Word of God and the impending return of the Messiah. The sky did not roar, it softly shattered the well-known sequence. Other shapes started to appear in the sky. Crosses, large faces gazing down, and pictures of knights in motion through the clouds. Concurrently, birds were seen flying in cross-like patterns, not a disorganized movement, but distinct patterns that forced onlookers to pause. What impressed many was the timing of these photos during a time of doubt and uncertainty. Then came the trumpet-like sounds. They reverberated in numerous locations without a discernible source. There were no airplanes, no buildings, and no concurrent military operations. In the Bible, the trumpet is a signal for assembly or a warning of war. These trumpets of the apocalypse mentioned in the book of Revelation are being heard globally, signaling that the seals are being loosened. Daniel 12 warns that many shall run to and fro, and knowledge shall be increased. But only those watching the gold timepiece of Jerusalem will truly understand what is coming next. Many people are nevertheless able to discover explanations when they look at those indications alone. Geological pressure, atmospheric phenomena, or air resonance. However, the query that plagues millions of people is not in the distinct phenomena, but in their convergence and timing. Signs from God are rarely found in seclusion. They typically occur in succession, repeating and overlapping. Jesus didn't claim that people will be aware of the precise day or time, but he said, "When these things start to happen, lift up your heads." A sign isn't always a condemnation. It is a final call to mercy. Jerusalem stands as the center of this storm, the focal point of every major prophecy in Daniel and Revelation. These signs are a final call to self-reflection. If this is the end of the age, where do you stand? Do not make assumptions. Look to the Word, look to the events in Jerusalem, and stay awake. Subscribe for part 2 as we delve deeper into the mysteries that are unfolding before our very eyes. Share your thoughts below. Do you believe these are the birth pains of a new era? What is going to occur is inevitable, but the true mystery lies in how we will respond. The future is not merely altered by the sign itself. Rather, how individuals react to it is what makes things happen. Recognizing the indications of the times is a duty that transcends mere curiosity. Throughout history, human existence has never relied solely on raw strength or intellect, but rather on the capacity to identify warning signs before calamity strikes. In the prophetic landscape, Jerusalem serves as the ultimate warning sign. It is the center of the world's stage, and as we see the nations gathering against it, we are reminded of Luke 21:28. When these things begin to take place, stand up and lift up your heads, because your